This time we're going to make a really simple bag. This is a bag with no fuss. So there are no zips, no pockets, no hardware, no fastenings. It fastens with a flap that goes underneath part of the webbing, which matches the handle. And again, it is fully lined, but on the inside there's no pockets. If you wanted to add anything like that, then of course you can do. All you've got here is the basis for a really easy, simple bag that I'm thinking would be ideal for somebody that hasn't made a bag before, or you're very new to sewing. I'll leave all of the materials in the description box below. Once you've made one of the bags, you'll see how easy it is to make them in different sizes, different widths, and try different fabrics as well. I've used a cotton canvas mix for this one, but of course you could use denim or cork or a faux leather or cotton or any kind of fabric that you like. Okay, so details down below of what you need to cut. Go get cutting, then let's get sewing. So I've got my 2 flat pieces, 2 outer pieces and 2 lining pieces. As I said, this is a very, very simple bag to make. On the wrong side of one outer piece, this is one that goes on the top, and both of the lining pieces, I've already fused some fleece, and this time I've used a craft fleece, which we sell on the website because it's quite firm, but it's very thin. So it's very similar in its structure to H630 or H640, which I use a lot for bags, but this has a little bit more firmness than an H630, but it is thinner, so it has a different feel. A bit more affordable as well. Now then, with the flap, I did play with trying to fussy cut it so that I had an exact match with the pattern, which is doable. It's quite time consuming. And if you get it slightly wrong, it can look very odd. So I just thought, I'm not going to worry about that at all. I'm just going to cut the fabric out regardless of where it fits. And when the fastening goes across here, it kind of detracts from any mismatch of patterns there. But if you want to take the time and trouble to do that, then it would look very nice. So again, a very simple bag, no pockets or anything on the inside, and no fastening, so it's an easy bag to make as well. So what we're going to do here is to cut a 1.5 inch corner from each bottom section of both the outer and of the lining pieces, and that's what's going to make the bag base square. So, if you wanted to quilt it at this point, that would be lovely. So I like just cross-hatching, which is maybe drawing diagonal lines in 2 directions, and that would look lovely if it was quilted. And let's do the same with the lining here. I'll do both pieces together. So again, 1.5 inches. The larger you make these squares, the deeper the base is going to be, but the smaller or the narrower the bag. But do be aware, if you make that too deep, the flap won't sit centrally. It'll curve around a little bit, so you may need to reduce the size of the flap as well. Nothing wrong in making a bag toile, so making something up in a cheap fabric or a scrap fabric first, and you never know, that may be the fabric that you decide to use. All right, let's cut these out as well. Love the crunch of the scissors, don't you? And finally, that one. Almost cut the wrong section. And there we have it. Now what I also thought I'd do with the flap is to make the front of this round, because that may make it easier to pop inside the fastening. So I'm using my corner creator, and I'm going to use the 2-inch section here. So line up the 2 lines and draw around here. I think we may be out of stock on the website at the moment for these, but if you do want one, please go on the waiting list. We do get them in quite frequently. If you don't have the tool or you don't want to buy one, then just a 2-inch circle template will do the job there. And let's just curve this. And then I can either use my corner tool or just this as a template to cut the backing fabric to the same shape. Right, then let's sew these two pieces right sides together, leaving the top open. So just line, right sides together. Line the two sections up. You can pop a few pins or clips around there if you wish. And I'm using 1/4 inch or a 6mm seam allowance. So I'm just lining up the edges. Take your time as you come around the curve to make sure your stitches are nice and smooth, because that's going to form the shape of the flap. So this is quite an important seam around the second section there. And back to the end. And then I'm just going to trim away the curved section. If you've got pinking shears, that would be a good place to use them here. And then we'll turn this the right side out and press it. And then I'm going to top stitch all the way around the edge. And I think that gives a nice look to the bag. I'm going to go for a longer stitch, so I'm on a 2.8 now, and so quite close to the edge. If you have a foot for your sewing machine, like an over edge foot that has a guide on it, or a blind hem foot, that's an ideal time to use it, just to make sure you get your stitches nice and even around the edge. Look nice in a contrast colour as well, actually. Push that around. Like so. And then this is going to go centrally, right sides together, as in the part with the fleece on is facing the back of the outer bag. And just pop that in the centre. You can measure that if you wish, just to make sure that that's the same distance apart. And then we're going to sew close to the edge just to hold that in place. So I can still keep the stitch long on this one. It's just like a holding stitch. And this is the way that the bag's going to work. So if we put these two pieces wrong sides together, lift up the flap. When this comes over the front, that's how it's going to fasten with the band across the top, and that's going to go all the way around to the sides. Now remember, these do have cut out corners, so that will disappear around the corner like that, and that means that you've got a depth to the bag as well. So if that seam goes like that, then the flap's going to sit across there. It's not going to be tight as it comes down, it'll sit across the shape at the top. So when we gauge where this is going to go, and I'll measure that on this bag, but I just like to explain what I'm doing in case you're making a different size of bag. I think the top of that, 4 inches from the top, is fine. If it goes too low down, then it's going to come undone, and if it's too high up, it'll look odd. So I'm going to go for 4 inches. So I'm going to place a clip here. Don't need that for the moment. 4 inches on this side. And a clip there. Didn't look quite straight. That's it. And then just sew down the very edge, again, just within the seam allowance, just to hold that in place. Now what I'm also going to do is put another few stitches where the corner is here, measure straight up, and I'm just going to sew across that line as well. And the reason for that is because it's going to help to keep the strap flat. As this curves around the side of the bag, that may be a little bit loose when you put the flap inside there. So I'm just going to put a few stitches there to secure it. And I did use a heat erasable pen to make the mark, so I can just use my iron to take away that mark there. Always test that first on a spare piece of the fabric that you're using, just to make sure that it's not going to mark it. Right, let's put this together. So the front and the back go right sides together. So I'll just pop a couple of clips in there to hold it. And we're going to sew it down both sides and across the bottom, but not the cut out corners, and leave the top open. Then we'll take the corners and pull the sides open so that the side seam is sitting on top of the base seam, and sew straight across. And to cut down on the bulk in the seam, I'm just going to squish those seams in opposite directions. And the same with the opposite side, so squish them opposite directions, and sew. You may find it easier to pop a couple of pins in there to hold it as you sew. And then we can turn this the right side out. And you'll see what your bag's going to look like. So again, when the flap comes over, that's just going to poke through there. So let's put the straps on the side now. So here we go. Now this can be as long as or short as you like. So the easiest way to make sure this is the right size for you is to throw a tape measure over your shoulder and just measure it. You can make it crossbody, make it a little bit longer if you wish. Just saw a loose thread there. And this is going to be sewn straight to the bag. So again, there's no hardware, there's no fuss with this bag. It's all very, very simple. So facing downwards over the side of the side seam, we'll pop a clip on there, and then just go straight around to the opposite side, making sure that the strap isn't twisted, and pop a clip on there. And then we'll sew those in place within the seam allowance. Now, if you did want to add any hardware, then you could put D-rings on there, and sliders and adjusters and all manner of fancy things. But this, again, is a very simple bag. So a bag that's aimed at a beginner sewer, or if you just need a really quick project. So the other side over here. So again, now you can really see what the bag's going to look like. So then we just need to put the lining inside. And of course, all needs a press. Everything looks better when it's had a press, doesn't it? Okay, so with the lining, we're going to sew it together in the same way as we did the outer bag. So down the sides and across the bottom, but this time we're going to leave a turning gap in one side. So I've left it in the side so that you don't really see it when you look inside the bag. Let's do that here. So just big enough to put your hand in, so maybe about 4 inches or 10 centimetres will be fine. Then, just like before, we're going to take the 2 corners, open them out, and sew straight across. Now we need to take the outer bag with the flap and the handle facing downwards and push this inside the lining so the right sides are together. all of this needs to go inside. So obviously there's a lot more fabric on the outside than on the inside, so it does feel a little bit bulky. Line up the side seams, and we're going to sew all the way around the top. So this time I'm going to take that accessory compartment off my sewing machine and slip this over. And again, if you prefer to pin, then pop a few clips or pins all the way around. So let's slip this over the top. And so always stop with your needle in the down position if you do stop. And I'm just keep checking that the raw edges of both the outer and the lining are matching. Your fabric is going to get a little bit thick as you go over the flap and the straps at the sides, so you may find a denim needle useful. So just keep going. Denim needle is a stronger needle. So it's been designed to sew through lots of layers of fabrics or thicker fabrics, like denim, for instance. Okay, just keep lining those up. And then we'll turn the whole thing the right side out. This is where you find out if you've left the hole big enough. Let's pull all this through. All right, then pull away the two edges of the opening, and you should see the seam allowance folding inwards, and we're going to sew straight across there to close the opening. You could do that by hand if you wanted to. I think if you're going to make something to sell, that's quite a nice touch if you have the time. All right, then let's push the lining inside the bag, and we'll give this a quick press. So I'm pulling the lining away from the outer fabric, so I want the seam to sit right around the top. So again, plenty of steam at this stage. Whoops. Let's fold that over again so that the lining's at the top. You may find it easier to press it on the inside. It's easier to hold it in place. Then over the side seams. My strap's a little bit curly, and that can happen particularly if you happen to have the webbing that's come off the end of the roll where it's wound tighter. But if you iron it with a bit of steam, then it'll go a lot softer. Let's just do that while we're here. That's it. So that's just uncurled a little bit now. And while I am here, I'm just going to press across here as well. So I think that's looking rather nice. I'm going to top stitch around there in just a second. I've just got a little bit of thread here. I don't know where it comes from, but it didn't seem to be there when I put the bag together, but it just seems to grow for some reason. Okay, and then let's top stitch around there. So again, I can go to a longer stitch. Let's go 2.8 again for this one. And slip this over the free arm. Make sure that when you do sew around here, the strap is facing away from the seam and the flap is facing away from the seam. Put that back on my machine while I think about it. And that is my bag finished. So I think you'll agree, I mean, this is maybe a half-hour video. That's how long it took to make it, apart from cutting out the pieces of fabric. So it really is a very quick make. It'd make a nice dog walking bag. with cats on. I've made mine from canvas. A denim would look very nice. You could use a faux leather, you could use a cork, you could just use a cotton, any kind of fabric that you wanted to make this. And as I said previously, it's meant to be a very simple, very easy bag for a beginner. But if you did want to add any kind of hardware, instead of putting the strap over here, maybe a magnetic snap, or of course pockets on the inside would work really well as well. But I hope you've enjoyed that. It's a nice quick make. Hope you enjoy making yours and make lots of them. I shall see you again soon. Bye bye.